You're listening to A Sculpted Life podcast, brought to you by Pal Tiya International. Interviews with creatives around the globe. Our sculpting material, Pal Tiya Premium, is the all-weather sculpting material. Add water, knead like dough, sculpt it. Make art for your garden. No firing, no molds, no kidding.
As mentioned in podcast episode 0, some people we interviewed for A Sculpted Life didn't have access to the most amazing recording equipment, so sometimes the sound isn't exactly crystal clear, but we do hope that you get a lot from it nonetheless. Enjoy.
I don't know, I'm just an artist, a dabbler, an experimenter, a teacher. Because I do want, well, I might not be there quite yet, but that's what I'm aiming to do mainly. So,
yeah.
And I do wanting to push my pet portraits a little bit more as well. So,
yeah,
I'm kind of, I'm an all-rounder really. I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll start there. When did you first get an inkling that you were a creative type person? Was it when you were really young, or how did it come about?
Well, yeah, it was when I was really young. It was my first year of school.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing around on the carpet with the art supplies, with some plasticine, I think it was, and I sculpted an elephant. And my teacher loved it so much. She was over the moon. So she kept it and she put it on display, and she kept it there for the whole year. She wouldn't let anyone touch it. It was like that was her elephant. And I got the art prize in my first year of school, so I was really happy. And I just remember going back to when I was at school, the best time of the year, even probably better than Christmas, was the start of every school term, when I got my new packet of crayons and pencils and ruler and paints and it was like, we can have some paper as well, and it was the best feeling in the world, getting art supplies. Just, I think I've still got an addiction for buying art supplies, even if I don't need them. I just love having art supplies around me. It makes me feel, I don't know, it's a part of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been drawing, and it was mainly drawing, from when I was really little. Although I loved sculpting, but I just couldn't find the right medium when I was really little. There wasn't much available for the general public when I was growing up. There was Fimo and Sculpey polymer clays, but that was back in the day when the materials used to manufacture them were very different. The clay was harder to condition. So for small hands, it was really difficult. It was So I kind of gave up on the whole sculpting idea. And I grew up in South Africa, and where it was quite hot. So I think a lot of the time, some of the clay was partially baked by the time I got to use it too. So it was almost impossible to get to a workable state. But yeah, I went through school, always drawing. It was always it's the one thing I could go back to and find solace in. When we moved around quite a bit, so I was always having to make new friends and settle into new schools, and that's the one thing that I always had that was constant, and my parents always encouraged it. So if I wanted to try silk screening, they bought me a silk screen for Christmas one year, and they were cheeky about it because I was so desperate to get this, and I opened all my presents on Christmas Day, and there was no silk screen, and I was devastated. But it was, oh, thank you very much. Oh, all my presents are lovely. Thank you. I was so gracious about it. And then there was this voucher that I opened. I was like, oh, thank you. And it was the silk screenings in Mum and Dad's bedroom cupboard, and I screamed and ran to go and get it. And then that year was all about making t-shirts, and anything that could be silk screened was silk screened. I did this when I was about 13, 14 was when I was silk screening. Bearing in mind I'm in my late 30s now, I found my dad still got one of the t-shirts I made. I caught him wearing it the other day, and he still got it. It was awful. It was a little kind of ship on the ocean with a really, really garish looking sun and really crude font that said Dad. It was really awful, but he still got it. So he was proudly wearing it around the house while he was doing his DIY. And and then my parents enrolled me in a drawing class when I was about 13 or 12 or 13. And that's when it really kind of took off for me. Someone showed me that my teacher at the time taught me that anybody can be taught how to draw. And he had the saying that if you can learn to write your name, if you can learn how to write, then you can learn how to draw. It's just a matter of knowing how to hold the pencil. And so that took some of the fear off, and he did this exercise with all of us in a drawing workshop, and it was a weekend workshop, and he got us all to draw a tree at the start of the class, and we all drew these awful trees. And then he said, okay, now I'm going to show you how to draw a tree. And he took all our pieces of paper away, and he showed us how to, how trees were formed and what not to draw. And then at the end of the day, he showed us, he put our drawings together, and we compared them against what we'd done in the morning, and they all looked like trees. They actually looked like decent, and wow, okay, wow, you really can teach anyone to draw. And then it was just a matter of practice, and building confidence. So it all started with me drawing, really.
So nowadays, when you're going to do something sculpting, like a sculpture, do you always, pardon the pun, but do you always draw on a drawing first?
No, which is strange. There have been times where I have drawn an idea that I've had, and the sculpture always looks very different, because I find sculpting is quite an intuitive process. I let it almost create itself. So, I mean, yes, there are rules to follow. You've got to have the correct proportion, and things need to balance. Even things that are even sculptures where the proportions are warped, it still needs to balance. But I think that's what I love so much about sculpting. I don't have to think about it as much as I do with drawing. With drawing, it's a very technical process for me.
Yeah.
And I find sculpting is much, much freer. So even though there are rules, the rules seem natural to me. So as I'm sculpting, my hands they do their own thing. I don't know what it is I do. I mean, as I'm talking to you now, I've actually got clay in my hands, and I'm sculpting. I find it quite calming. It's one of the ways I switch off, and my brain's always running a mile a minute.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that switches me off, and I can lose hours in the studio just with my clay.
Yeah, I had a friend who said that at school she used to make gorgeous little flowers and things with blue tack.
You know what? I was the blue tack girl at work. When I left my last job, they gave me 2 packets of blue tack as part of my leaving present. I had this little tin of lip balm that used to sit on my desk, and it had a big blob of blue tack stuck to the top of it. And if anyone wanted blue tack, they knew that they could get it from me. Only if it hadn't been sculpted into something that day. Because it was my desk fiddle. I probably had the stickiest blue tack in the office because I'd worked it so much.
So some people have stress balls. Heather has blue tack balls.
I have blue tack. I mean, I finished school. I went to college, and I fell ill in between college and school, and lost all confidence. I had burnout from we'd been moving house so many times, and it finally caught up with me, and I was close to having a nervous breakdown at a very young age.
Yeah.
And my parents tried to encourage me to go to art college, and I had no confidence. I was like, no, they'll never let me in. I'm not good enough. They'll never let me in. And even to the morning of the entry exam, I didn't want to go. And they said, no, you're going. You will do this. Just do the best you can, and then we'll deal with whatever afterwards. Well, I went in there and it was a breeze. I walked in, drew what they told me to draw, and they went, oh yeah, of course you can come into the college. Of course there's a space for you. And, really? Oh, okay, thanks. And then I started getting my confidence back. I could finally, because I struggled with academic subjects, and I finally found something I knew I was good at and that I could do. And so we were introduced to 3D sculpture, pottery, wirework, plaster of Paris, which I was pretty rubbish at plaster of Paris. We were being taught how to carve plaster of Paris, and that's extremely brittle. So I hated that bit. But I really started finding myself. And that gave me, as I gained a bit of confidence, it gave me more confidence to learn something else. And yeah, I discovered I really loved pottery. I loved it so much. The hand building side of it.
Yeah.
Not so much the wheel. I mean, the wheel was fun, but it wasn't free enough for me. It was, everything was very precise measurements, and I'm but too much of a free spirit for precise measurements. It's too restrictive, yeah. And we got to, as part of the South African lottery, it was around about the time Jurassic Park 2 came out.
All right.
All of the shopping malls around the country were tasked to put on a display, a dinosaur display for the current lottery competition, to go hand in hand with the launch of Jurassic Park 2. And so the college got involved with that, and we were tasked to create the dinosaurs for the display. And so for months, the sculpture room was filled with these wire dinosaurs that we were covering in paper mache. And it was a horrible process at parts. I remember taking home boxes of newspaper and ripping it up into tiny little pieces, and having black fingers at the end of it from all the ink. And then we had to make this horrible paper mache pulp clay with linseed oil and all the other bits. It stank, but we had this lovely pulp to work with. It was not paper mache and not clay, but it was somewhere in between, and we built these massive dinosaurs, and then we painted them, transported them to the shopping mall, installed them as well, and we came number 1 in the country. So yeah, we were in the newspaper. We thought this was the best thing ever, and then I won the Young Artist of the Year competition, which I'd entered this. I think it was the same year, and so I won that, and it kind of just really boosted my confidence.
I bet.
But at the same time, I kept getting people telling me, "You can't make a career in art. There's no, you can't sustain a life with a career in art. Get a proper job. Go and do something proper with your life." So at the end of college, I got a proper job. It was the worst thing I'd ever done. I could make a living, and it was shortly after that I got married the first time, and I had my 2 kids. So art kind of took a massive sidestep, and I didn't touch my paints or clay or anything for years, and I wanted to sculpt again, but there was nowhere I could go I couldn't find anywhere that had a kiln. So it all just stopped. And then I moved back to the UK just before my daughter turned a year old. So it's about 16 years ago now. And yeah, it was a few years after that I started getting itchy fingers again. I needed to do something. So
passion was calling.
It was definitely it was just a quiet call, but you know, I'd paint and draw in my spare time at home, and it took me a while to get the skills back up again because I'd put it off for so many years. And yeah, then a couple of years ago it really started shouting at me. And we'd go to some art gallery, or we'd go to an event, or I went to the Harry Potter studio tour, and I left feeling happy because I'd been there and I'd seen it, and I left feeling miserable at the same time, and almost angry because it wasn't fair. How can all these people be creating these beautiful things, and I've done nothing with what I was taught? You know, why can't I be part of something like that? It's not fair. I want to be a part of it. So I started sculpting again, but with the only medium that I could get my hands on, which was polymer clay. And I managed to get some satisfaction, well, actually a lot of satisfaction out of that. But then I saw a couple of years ago, or just over a year ago, I saw Pal Tiya. And it was like, where have you been all my life? And no, this isn't fair, it's not in the UK. It's got to be here. I mean, my husband, Russell, he said he had to put up with a whole year of me going, it's not fair, it's not in the UK, I want this product when it gets here. And then it got here, and I think I was one of the first orders placed.
Yes. I remember.
And yeah, it was something I could sculpt big. I mean, big for me is small for some people, but
yeah, well, that's what I was talking to about Richard yesterday. I was saying, you know, big for someone who does polymer would be like, you know, 10 inches high or something.
Bigger than a mug.
Yeah, bigger than a mug.
For polymer clay, yeah.
Yeah. Which is quite exciting, I guess, for someone who's used to doing sort of smaller things, yeah.
Well, yeah, I wanted to... I like creating objects that are useful, or have a purpose. You know, they're not... I love creating fantasy figures as well, you know, troll dolls and goblins and that kind of thing. But for other things, it needs to have a purpose. So I made paintbrush pots for a while out of polymer, and boxes, and I wanted to do something big. I wanted to make lamps, and I wanted to make display stands as well for some of my work. And I went to a pottery class, and it wasn't how I remembered it at college.
Right.
The clay hadn't changed, but I think my work process had changed quite a bit. I got so used to the way polymer worked, the fact that you could make something, it would hold its shape, you could bake it pretty quickly, you didn't have to wait weeks for it to dry before you could bake it, and it could be quite a quick process, and I got so used to that when I went back to clay, it's like, oh, I've got to wait before I can do the next bit. I'm not very patient. And then when I tried Pal Tiya, I could go bigger, and the results were instant, and I could paint it the next day if I wanted to, if you had the right paints. You know, I've normally wait a good week or two before I paint a piece now, but yeah, I just love how instant it is. You have an idea, you can make your idea happen straight away, and the work process is very, for me, it seems very similar to polymer. The material feels very different, but the process feels the same, building over an armature and working in thin layers, which you do with Pal Tiya. So I found the transition between the two quite easy. and I use both in my studio. On one desk is my drawing and my drawing and Pal Tiya table, and up another table kind of opposite for my polymer. And the thing with polymer is you've got to keep dust off it, because if dust gets into it, it will show up, especially if you're using the lighter colours. So I was worried about using Pal Tiya in my studio because it's a powder and it's still clay, so it is dusty, but it's nowhere near as dusty as clay. So I can work in micro conditions next to my polymer, and it doesn't affect my polymer work. So it's a kind of match made in heaven, really. I can work big and small at the same time.
So with Premium, do you so you just have an idea and just, because sometimes I see your work and I think, how did she even think of doing that? Like what made that come into her head? What inspires that in you?
That's a tricky one. I think nature to a large degree. I've always been inspired by the natural world around me. Growing up in South Africa, it was all my paintings and drawings are mainly wildlife and animals. And I think that was ingrained into me from a very young age, because I had that around me all the time, and that deep love for it. And yeah, I'd like to say artists as well. They can inspire me. If I've seen a technique that they use and I go, oh, that works really well. How can I use that technique? But I sometimes find there's so much visual noise in the media that can actually squash your creativity too, and actually kill it. So as much as I like seeing what other artists do and what other people are up to, I try and limit that now, because you can spend all day looking at other people's lovely work and then find that you've not created anything for a whole week, because you're looking at everything else everyone else has made. So I mean, that tree lamp, I made that tree fire lamp.
Yes, we will put that in the blog post. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video online. It was around about the time of the California fires, and there was a hollow tree that was on fire, and it was burning on the inside, but the outside of the tree was still standing. It looked so pretty. I mean, it was horrendous, but it was beautiful, and I went, I need to turn that into a lamp. I need to make that. So I just got the clay out, and it was shortly after, we'd had some bad news in the family, and I just spent the day sculpting. I switched off from everything. The whole world just disappeared, and I made it, and I felt so much better afterwards.
Yeah.
And yes, as I said, sculpting is a very, very intuitive process for me. I'll see something and I'll go, right, I'll try and make that. If I plan something, more often than not, it doesn't work out the way I planned. So I try to have a rough idea of what I'm going to do, and then see where it takes me.
Yeah.
And then once I get familiar with a particular shape and style, then it's easy enough to do it again. But I enjoy not fighting with it, but playing with it. Saying, I want to do this, and it goes, well, no, you can't do that. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this. Oh, all right then, I'll let you do that. How else can I make this work? It's really, really therapeutic.
Yeah.
As I said, the whole world disappears when you sculpt. You forget everything. Time itself just doesn't exist. And
I think that's because you're in that flow, that place where I get it when I write poetry or when I'm writing my fiction. It's nothing else matters, and just everything just disappears, and you're just there with your words, and you're there with your clay, and I think there's something really beautiful about that. Calls to you.
Yes, and then at the end of it, I mean, you can feel quite tired. It does take a lot out of you, because that much concentration and focus is exhausting. But at the same time, you feel so alive when you step back and you go, "I just made that."
Yeah.
I wanted to make that, and I made it, and I made it so quickly. And I think that's what surprises me, and actually it surprises my family too, because they'll go out, and I'll be starting a project, or sometimes I haven't even started anything, and they'll come home and they'll go, "Whoa, did you just make that today?" Yeah. What, just today? Yeah. Oh, that's quick. But I'm good at procrastinating too.
Oh, aren't
So
you?
sometimes I go, "Oh, I want to make this," and a month later, "I want to make that." "Yeah, when are you just going to do it?"
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah." And then I'll make it in a day, and I don't know why I waited around so long.
And went back to, I just want to revisit back to when you said about going to a normal job, and then you stopped, and then you started doing the art again. What's your plan for the future? I mean, we know you're going to be running these Pal Tiya Premium classes, but what else is in your future for making money from your art? Or do you do commissions, or how does that work?
Because I like all forms of art. I like to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to kind of pull myself back a little bit and limit myself, because I can paint, I can draw, I can sculpt in different media, or mediums. So I've decided I'm going to carry on drawing. I'm not going to teach drawing, at least not at the moment. But I am going to be continuing with, I do some pet portraits, so I'm going to continue with my charcoal pet portraits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do a couple of commissions a month. I'm not going to overwork myself there, because I love drawing, and that is also really relaxing, and you have to, when you're copying a photo, or when you're doing a commission of someone's pet, you've got to get it just right. So you get the technical side of things where it's got to be just right. So that's going to satisfy my need to do something that's really, really tight, and controlled. And I'm going to be doing the Pal Tiya workshops and parties, I hope, as well, and events. So yeah, I want to use it as much as possible, and I'll be open for classes and parties. I'm going to run my first micro class next week, which I'm really looking forward to. Yeah. So we're going to make some mini fairy and hobbit doors for garden then. And I'm also going to be running polymer clay workshops too.
Nice.
And parties. So that'll be everything from some jewellery making to various sculptures, and eventually I'd like to teach making some of the fantasy dolls that I make, but that's quite a lengthy process. One doll can take me well over a week to make, and that's focusing on that doll entirely for the whole week. So to teach a process like that, it would need to be quite a lengthy workshop, probably a whole weekend. So I'll build up to that eventually. And I've decided it's all going to be about my polymer, my Pal Tiya Premium, and my charcoal work, for at least the next couple of years, and I'll see where that goes.
And what would you love people to know about creating, and about people that are maybe out there and they're thinking about it, or they've maybe, like you, they've had that time away, they've maybe had children or changed careers or whatever, something has taken them away from that. How would you encourage them to get back into being creative again?
I think it's taking the first step. If you're thinking about wanting to be creative, think about what it is you want to do, because and what is portable. What can you take with you anywhere? I mean, for me, I've always got my sketchbook and a couple of pencils in my handbag, and I've usually got a piece of polymer clay in my handbag as well, because if you're sitting waiting for an appointment, I can't stand reading magazines. I find them really boring, and if I've got a piece of clay in my hand, then even if I'm talking to my son or my daughter who might be with me at the time, I can still be creative and still engage in conversation with them, and without it, interfering or without me being rude. And if you're on your own, you've got your sketchbook, you can doodle away. So I think anyone wanting to be creative, get yourself a sketchbook and just keep it in your handbag or keep it in your pocket. And it doesn't have to be a sketchbook. You can write notes in it, you can write ideas, you can do scribbles. It doesn't have to be a work of art. It's just somewhere for you to put your ideas. And it was someone suggested I carry this sketchbook around with me, and I thought, just draw something every day. Yeah, but it's going to be a mess. I can't do that. I've now got a whole bookshelf full of sketchbooks. They're not pretty. They're not pretty by any means, but some of the ideas I've had have turned into either a painting or a sculpture later on. Because it was just an idea, and no one needs to see it. That's your personal idea library. And for anyone wanting to start small. You don't have to go and buy an easel and all the paints and all the clay and all the tools. Yeah. Start small and make, or even just start with one little project that you want to do, and then go on to the next project. And over time, you'll build confidence, you'll build skill, and you'll also build your art supplies as well, without it costing you a fortune on day one.
Exactly. Or if they want, they can just attend one of your classes, and that would be a great way to get started.
Yes, because all the supplies are provided as part of the fee, and they can come in, try it out, and walk home or drive home with a piece ready-made, ready for the garden. And that's a I need to start thinking like that. Yeah, I keep forgetting that I teach. I'm still torn between I'm an artist and I create stuff, and me wanting to show people and teach people how they too can get the same enjoyment that I get when I make something.
It's kind of interesting, because you're kind of going full circle of when you got taught to draw that tree, right? It's like, now you're the one who has gone, actually, if I can do this, other people can do it, and here's how. And I think that's lovely.
I started the Basingstoke meetup group for polymer clay artists, and we meet once a month. It's only just started, so it's a small group, and I've taught a few people in the group how to make certain things without me realising I was teaching them. It was a case of we all got together, and a friend of mine went, Heather's going to show us how to do this today. Am I? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, I'll show you how to do this. And then I found out I was teaching, and I hadn't realised, because I wasn't thinking about, right, I've got to teach. It was so relaxed, and I had so much enjoyment from it, because I saw the looks on their faces afterwards, and I can't believe we made this. Yeah, you did, you made it. And, that coming back to talking about, how it was my teacher that taught me how to draw, and I often thought, when I was 13, I thought one day I want to do what he's doing. I want to teach people how to create. Yeah. Never thinking I'd actually get there one day, and I'm now only every now and then I realise actually I'm there now. And I've always been trying to kind of, one day I want to be ready to teach. And I've slowly learnt that there will always be more to learn. You'll never know it all.
Yeah.
There is so much to learn. So even if you only know a little bit, you can still teach what you know, because someone else won't know what you know.
Exactly, and that's exactly how I used to feel about teaching mindfulness. Was I thought everyone will know this already, and you would do a class and you would see all these people scribbling notes and writing things down, and you'd be like, what are they doing? And then afterwards people come up saying, I'd never heard of that, or I'd heard of that but I hadn't heard it in that way before. And and then that's when I realized that these people didn't know about this. I just thought they did because I did.
Well, exactly, and I say that for me sculpting is intuitive, but maybe it's not. Maybe I've learnt certain skills over the years and my hands have become so practiced by doing that particular movement that it feels intuitive now, but there was a time I didn't know how to do that. I had to show someone how to sculpt a very basic face the other day, and I went, okay, yeah, this will be easy. And I sculpted a very basic face form in a couple of minutes, and I was trying to teach this person how to get those very subtle shapes. And it was only as I was teaching I realised, okay, it's not intuitive. My hands are just practiced in this. A little press there and a little pull there. So I might feel it simple, but it might not be simple for someone else. So it's a whole new learning curve for me now, because when I'm sculpting now and I'm creating a new piece, I'm not thinking about making something as a one-off piece anymore. I'm thinking, how can I teach this? How can I break it down so it's simple for someone else to follow? How can I simplify this to make it easier for someone who's never touched this product before, make it? And sometimes I find that can be exhausting, and sometimes the creativity or the flow of creativity can disappear a little bit because you're having to think about it in a very technical way.
Sure.
So I try now balance the two. So sometimes, yesterday I made a piece that I'm not going to teach, I'm not going to sell, I made a piece for me. And I spent all day doing it, and which is another reason I could probably never teach it, because it took so long to do. It was just very labour intensive. But it satisfied that creative urge. And now today it's going to be workshop planning. Right, this is what I'm going to do to create a workshop. And thinking like a teacher is very different to thinking like an artist, but it's kind of merged to, which is why sometimes I not struggle with the idea that I'm a teacher. I love the idea that I'm now a teacher, but I struggle with putting the two together because they don't always gel very well.
But the beauty of it is, though, that you're not going to be teaching people like a robot. You're actually going to be saying to them, how do you feel about this piece? Does this bit sit right with you? Because it might not look right to you, but it'll look right to them. And
we're not replicating, no one's making exactly the same piece. They're not robots. They're making the way they want to see it, the way they see it in their mind's eye. And
that's actually the best teacher, when someone is allowing you to do what you need to do. There's an earlier episode with Bob Stafford, who is also a certified Pal Tiya Premium teacher, and he was saying about the teacher coming along and poking eyes where he thought the duck's eyes should be,
and
he was like, it was sleeping. If you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen, because it's quite interesting. But it's that interfering of, if you're doing everything to the correct way and not just kind of feeling your way through it like you should, then there are set rules. I'm just thinking about in parallels between writing, there's set rules for writing a fiction book that's going to sell, the hooks at the end of the chapter and the pacing, and there's a certain formula that has actually made me now read books in a completely different way, like you were saying, reading it with an eye of, oh, how have they done that, and breaking it apart, and then so not enjoying the book as much.
Yeah. I must admit, whenever I see a sculpture I really like, or a painting I really like, I think it frustrates my kids sometimes, because I'll go up to it and go, how did they do that? Right, oh yeah, you can see the join over there. Oh, have you seen the brush stroke over here? Oh, I haven't tried that technique before. Like, Mum, just look at the painting. Or just look at the sculpture, isn't it pretty? I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
I made it. How did they do that? Yeah, I'm forever picking pieces apart, and sometimes you do need to step back and go, just try and enjoy it.
Yeah, let it flow a little bit, and I think that's a really good teacher, is just stepping away and going, you know what, you've got this. Like, I can show you what to do, but ultimately it's going to be you who decides what that finished piece looks like. And there are some people out there who will want it to look exactly how it's supposed to look, or exactly like yours looks, or but giving them that freedom is probably the best thing you can do, because then they're going to become the kind of artist who are doing things that they want to do rather than what they feel they should.
And another thing I've learned is, there are some artists who I look at their work and go, wow, I absolutely love that. I wish I could do that. I'll never be as good as them. And I'm slowly starting to realise that I don't have to be like them. They are good at what they are doing. That's their style. That's their work. It's not my work. I don't have to emulate what they're doing. I need to create what feels good to me. And I think when you're going through college, and when you're at art school, you're being taught how to create something a particular way within particular rules, and it needs to look a certain way at the end of it. When you come away from that and you actually realise it doesn't have to always follow those rules, it takes a while to learn, or to be comfortable with breaking the rules a bit.
Yes.
But it's so freeing. It is so freeing and liberating when you go, I'm going to break that rule. I'm going to make his arms longer than where they should be. Oh, look, now he looks more like an elf.
Yeah.
His arms are longer, his legs are longer, his neck's longer. As a human, he doesn't look right, but as a fantasy figure, actually, he does.
Yeah.
So but you do need to understand some of those basic rules first, so you can know what to break.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you don't have to know the rules.
You can just
play.
Do what you want. Is there anything you would want to see in the future, in your future, like thoughts of going bigger? Like you mentioned going bigger with Pal Tiya Premium, but is there a project you have in mind for that, or?
Well, I don't have any specific project in mind, but for bigger, at least. I do want to try and, I said earlier that how much I've loved wildlife paintings and sculpture. So I would like to have a go and doing some animal sculptures with Pal Tiya Premium. I sculpted my dog in regular clay, earthen clay, several years ago, which was great. But I've only sculpted one of my dogs, and I've got another one. He's feeling a bit left out, so I need to sculpt him. I'd like to do some pet portraits in clay. I'd love to be part of a collaborative project, because going big, the armature is something I'm not familiar with. When you're doing a big piece, you need very different armature, or you need a stronger framework. And I've got no experience in that field, so I'd like to work with someone who does have that experience, so I can learn to go bigger. For me at the moment, bigger is anything kind of 30-40 centimetres a foot is quite large for me at the moment. I'm used to sculpting quite small. So with Pal Tiya Premium, it's not meant for really small, intricate work.
No.
It's easier to use when you get bigger, and you can still get really fine detail, but only on the bigger pieces. If you want really fine detail on small pieces, polymer clay is the way that I go.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd also like to start incorporating some glass. I went to a sculpture park, a local sculpture park a few weeks ago, and there were some amazing sculptures in there. And someone had incorporated mosaics and glass, but really iridescent glass. So it wasn't, it had such a beautiful glow to it. And I'd like to figure out a way of incorporating lights. Maybe not lights as in electrical lights, maybe the sunlight, I don't know, but using lights and clay together to make something that constantly changes with the weather and the light during the day.
That would be cool.
I've always found sculptures like that quite fascinating and interesting, but I still want them to look like they belong outside, that they've not just been placed there, that they've been there for years.
Yeah.
I like kind of rustic looking pieces, and I don't know, it's such a versatile medium. I don't know where it's going to take me. I'm kind of letting it dictate where I go at the moment, because I've created pieces that I never would have created before. Pieces that are very different to my usual style, only because of what it can do.
Well, your pieces completely inspire me, and they make me want to, I finish up my work at the end of the day, and I sit there and I do my yoga, and then I've got my table there, and I've got access to as much premium as I want. And I sit there and I think, what do I make? And then I always look at your stuff and I'm like, oh, I can make that. And you really inspired me with your fire lamp to make these little ones round a toilet holder. So I cover the toilet roll holder with the foil, and then put it round, and then when it's set, I can take it out and then sort of carve it into what I want it to look like. And I really love making them, but that's about the only thing.
I remember seeing it on one of the workshops that you did before Christmas. I saw someone making one at one of the tables, I think, and I got so excited. I went, someone's making my lamp!
Yeah,
that's fantastic. So I want to make more pieces like that.
Yeah.
Normally, for drawing and painting, my style has been relatively realistic. But for some reason, with this, it's kind of woken up my kind of slightly abstract side of things. It's still got a link to nature, but it's, I don't know, the way the trees are formed and the way that rocks form, and there's something quite, when you start looking at the world around you, you suddenly start noticing shapes you just took for granted. And because of the way Pal Tiya Premium works, it allows you to recreate those shapes and those textures relatively quickly and easily, allowing it to be quite accessible to recreate. And I'm so excited about where this is going. I have no idea where it's going to take me, and I'm just enjoying I'm enjoying the experimenting and enjoying the ride, really.
Yeah. Well, we are enjoying looking at what you're doing with it, and I think your students will really enjoy having you as a teacher, because you're very approachable, and I would say dependable as well, and also full of ideas and excitement about it. And I remember that when we were doing the teacher training, you know, you just had so much enthusiasm and so much excitement around you. Almost felt like it was infectious, you know.
Oh my! I had to keep telling myself to shut up. It was like,
no,
you're talking
don't.
too much. You're talking too much. Shush.
No, I don't think you do, and I think that you need to know that you're so inspiring. Well, thank you so much for chatting to me, and I will link everything below if you want to go to one of Heather's classes. That will all be in the show notes and in the blog post that accompanies this, and we'll also pop. But tell people where they can find you. So you have a Facebook page and a website. So let us know what that is.
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 Facebook pages.
Yes, you do.
My sculpture page it's Frosty Feather Faye. It was my nickname at school. I was called Frosty Feather. So I just decided to keep it, and Faye because I like creating fantasy creatures. And then I have another Facebook page which is more for my drawings and paintings, which is Heather Robertson Artist. And my website, which I really, really need to get finished. I've got a lovely company helping me revamp it. And that's heatherrobertsonart.com. But it is a bit out of date at the moment, and it will be up and running soon as I finish writing the content, which I'm rubbish at doing. Frosty Feather Faye and Heather Robertson Artist on Facebook, and heatherrobertsonart.com.
Great. And I will also link your Instagram if everyone wants to go and have a little look at that.
Oh yeah, I'm just starting to go into Instagram. I've not used it much, but I'm trying.
Well, thank you so much, and we're so excited to see what you do in the future with everything that you touch, because it just seems to turn to really cool things.
Oh, thanks.
And I think that it's really good. Your drawing is obviously, and your painting and things, you know, because the colours that you do on your pieces just totally pop as well. And I'm always trying to like, how did she do that? You know, I can't get the colours to do that. How did she do that? And it just looked so easy.
Oh, years and years of playing around and making mistakes.
Well, you have a great rest of day, and thank you for talking to us once again. And this is the last episode of season 1, and we shall see if everyone wants a season 2.
I do. I love it. I find I love listening to everyone's interviews. It's so inspirational in the studio. Every now and then I've replayed a few interviews already. I just love having it on.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Well, thank you all for listening to season 1 of A Sculpted Life podcast. We had real fun doing these interviews with creative people around the globe. If you would like to hear a season 2, then let us know by leaving a review over on iTunes or commenting on any of our videos that we also post on our YouTube channel, which is just Pal Tiya. Thanks very much.
If you want to know more about Pal Tiya and our amazing product, Pal Tiya Premium, then visit www.paltiya.com and join our international fan base.